recording now.
No! Too early. Balls. I got in there early.
Also.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Okay.
Welcome to the Ancient Robot Games podcast. As always, I am Dougal.
And I am Gelb.
And we are joined today by Greg Foster. Greg.
Hello.
Hello. You are, in case people don't already know, the leader. I'm going to say leader, creator. You are the move maker,
orchestrator,
design,
lead.
This is a lot of promotions.
All of these things for Leithal Hits, which is a local community wargaming group. You've done an awful lot of work for that to get people up and running and playing games and things like that. So thank you for coming to join us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
I am curious, as I am with all community building based things, as to what happened. What went from the point of going,
what went wrong?
Here's a thing I like doing, and I like doing it with other people, to I'm going to create something that gives me an awful lot more work and hopefully drag some more people in with it.
It is a lot more work. So I very definitely was not the originator of Leithal Hits. So that was a chap called Rich. He had a group chat with a couple other folk who liked to play Imperial Guard at a point where Imperial Guard were really bad. So they mostly just whinged about how bad it was to play Guard, which was cool. So I met Rich playing. We'd been to a couple of tournaments over in Glasgow, because back then that was kind of the only way you could do competitive 40k if you were in Edinburgh, right? There was nowhere to do it here. You would go to Glasgow, you would go to Fife, you would go somewhere else. So Rich wrote me into this group chat, and it was around about the time that Red Dice Games closed, so there was no like regular space to play 40k in the same way. Obviously, we could play Ancient Robot. I played Ancient Robot a lot, but you couldn't go there every night. You couldn't just like fill the whole place with 40k people, right? So it was a bit of a different setup. You couldn't have quite as many people in. So Rich and the group of us that were in the chat started going out to Marionville Models to play games, and then it sort of snowballed from there. So we would do like a Saturday where we'd all get together and play 3 games of Warhammer. And then we started running Arena. So we had the Monday night gaming, and then we started doing tournaments on the weekend, and then we figured we probably need some more people in to make sure Arena was full, so we started doing Learn to Play nights, and now we have a monthly tournament. We're doing 2 grand tournaments this year. We've sent a team down to the Scottish Club Team Championship the other week, and we run 2 Learn to Play nights a month. I think we've got about 150 folk in the Discord, and we've had about 180 through our tournaments in the last 2 years. So yeah, it sort of just snowballed out of we should play 40k more, and I like playing with you lot, so let's do this. And it's very much snowballed, yeah.
And you're like, I like playing with you lot, but I'd rather play with more people and get them involved as well.
Yeah, right. Like, you can't always play with the same 8 people all the time. Eventually, you will get bored of playing the same 8 armies and the same 8 missions and in the same way. And so actually having a bigger community with more people who play different armies gives you a lot more interest and vibrancy in the game, because you're not always just playing the same people with the same army doing the same stuff on the same mission. It just makes it all a bit more interesting.
As someone who is a war game neophyte,
I'm ashamed of you, Gil.
What? Why? What? No. What's special? What in your mind? Like, what is special about sitting down or standing up, moving around a table, playing a war game versus maybe other ways of, bringing people together and playing? Like, for you,
for me, part of it is that I've put all the work into making this army, right? Like I've spent all the time building and painting and assembling these folks. I have, in often cases, kit bashed them so they look a little different to the stock models. I've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that they are mine, and they're my guys, and they're my war dollies. And then I go onto a table with someone else who's put a similar level of care and attention and effort into theirs, and we roll some dice and weird stories happen. And that for me is the most fun part of it, right? Like, I enjoy the mechanics of, I'm going to run over here and stab you. That's fun. But actually what's really fun is when a tank randomly blows up and destroys 400 points of stuff, and it completely changes the game plan, and everything's crazy, and there's this narrative story. Or you've got one hero guardsman who passes 5 battle shocks in a row and holds a point and scores you 20 points when he should by all rights be absolutely dead in a ditch. So it's that kind of emergent storytelling that happens from it being a dice game for me.
And do you find different systems speak to you in different ways?
Yes. So I've not played a huge amount of stuff, I will admit. I got hooked on 40k early and I've locked in on 40k. So I have also played some Kill Team. I've played a little bit of Age of Sigmar, and I've also played a lot of computer games. But I think it's similar stuff in the game systems. I think the reason I bounced off Kill Team was actually I found it much harder to come up with the narrative stuff because some of the rules stuff was a little weird to my brain. Like, yes, I can see all of that man, but he's standing next to a really tall pillar, so I can't see him. He's invisible now. Was just like, yeah, that doesn't vibe with me because it needs to feel like something logical and fun and interesting, and it kind of takes away from the like emergent fun of like just popping around a corner and being like, haha, I got you.
So that's obviously all Games Workshop based stuff.
Yep.
For people who don't know wargaming at all, just a quick explanation. Games Workshop has been around for goodness knows how long, 35 years, something like that?
I think it's closing in on 50.
Closing in on 50. One of the UK success stories, crazy enough.
It's bigger than the UK fishing industry.
Yeah, makes more money for the UK at least than the entire fishing industry does, which is insane when you think about it. And it is at least was a smaller scale IP, or there was multiple IPs that were owned that came out of wargaming in the same way, I would say, that things like Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games came out of miniature wargaming, was what Dungeons and Dragons originally was. Games Workshop kind of ran with that, very UK-based and small team for quite a long time, until much more recently, and have created more and more games, and then had a bit of a horrible time in the early 2000s, and had less and less games, and now has popped off again, at least over the past kind of 15 years, I would say at least, where they've just been going from strength to strength when it comes to making miniatures, being able to sell those, and having the hobby kind of really respond. I think, personally, from what I've seen, there's a lot of Games Workshop new players to all the Games Workshop games that have really come in through the internet. And to be honest, more than anything else, the kind of background lore that has been built over time that Games Workshop has done, whenever you have something that's going on quite as long as that, there are some wonderful issues, shall we say, with keeping all of that lore tidy, but also some huge expansive universe really that's been built over that time. Have you noticed that yourself, being in the hobby as long as you have, for more people kind of joining simply because of that side of things?
Yeah, I think one of the things that surprised us the most was when Space Marine 2 came out, which is one of the video games associated with 40k, we got so many new people just to start appearing. Like, people had very clearly gone out, enjoyed playing this game, and then gone and bought some Space Marines. In some cases, bought quite a lot of Space Marines, and then wanted to play this game, right? So we were running Learn to Play nights, and I think the first one took a little bit of time to get going, but once Space Marine 2 hit, we were actually almost sold out completely. So it's like very much like a magnet of people trying this thing and then going, this looks fun and I'll try it on the tabletop. And quite a lot of those people have ended up sticking, certainly more than I would have expected, from like this is an intro night, come along, no commitment, just have fun. You don't even have to assemble your models. We'll teach you to play. And a lot of those players that came out from that were very sticky and have actually gone on to play in our tournaments and be part of the team. And actually that's been really hugely successful. So yeah, definitely the wider IP works quite well for GW. And I suspect other war games that are based on IP will have the same thing, right? Like, I think there's probably going to be a fair few people trying the new StarCraft game.
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, you say no commitment. There's a really interesting thing which is exclusive to wargaming, I would say, or maybe not exclusive, but much heavier pushed in wargaming than it is in the board gaming or the tabletop RPG sphere, which is the financial commitment that actually does come with wargames. There is not here's a lovely meeple version of this game that is half the price. There's an awful lot of plastic miniatures that are being made by some fantastic artists with ridiculous sculpts that are really, really cool. But there is a heavy buy-in cost to get into the game. Would you imagine that has restricted the, I guess, accessibility of more people being able to play it?
So I think it definitely has. I do also think increasingly there's a lot of tools to navigate that. Like, our Learn to Play nights are explicitly smaller format games, so you don't need to buy as much stuff to do it. We've also said to people that we'll lend out armies. We've had a couple of people come through who have borrowed armies and then gone on to buy their own in quite a slow roll fashion.
Mercenaries.
And in general, they are reasonably good at doing those kind of discount boxes that can get you going. But yeah, I imagine if you are looking at a hobby and you're going, well, do I want to spend £40 on a video game that I might entertain me for 80 hours or £40 on 5 Space Marines? It's probably quite a difficult decision unless you actually know that you're probably going to get quite a lot of enjoyment out of those 5 Space Marines over the next 5 years. But yeah, I think certainly there is a perception that it's expensive, but I also think that for the amount of time, if you get into it, the amount of time you spend doing it, it becomes very cheap.
Well, do you think then that's well, yes. Do you think not only financial, but time and effort and things that you have put in specifically for your guys, as you say, these are mine, do you think that that is a restrictive thing with learning other war games or other things that have similar systems or at least similar ideas of, and here's some more models to buy and different things? Almost, well, I've spent 100 hours painting all of these guys, kind of might make you feel a little bit like, well, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
But that might just be my personal feeling.
No, I think that's super fair. And I think that's where particularly skirmish and smaller format games can be really helpful. Because like if I've just got to buy 1 box of 10 models to try your game out, I'm probably much more likely to do it than if I've got to buy, 10 boxes and paint hundreds of things. So like I've tried out quite a lot of other GW games and I haven't really gone outside GW. I do keep looking sideways at BattleTech, but actually the thing that puts me off there is the model quality. Like it's just not quite as nice a build and paint experience as far as I can see. So yeah, I think certainly that is something that's an issue.
The wargaming kind of hobby feels like there's multiple levels, but how do you, as somebody who quite likes 40K, look at the market for just cool looking miniatures that might not be relevant for your gameplay?
I buy loads of them.
So those are
I'm someone who enjoys the hobby side as well as the gameplay side. So like if I see, for me, it's particularly cool-looking D&D cats. Like, if you've got a box of cat miniatures that are D&D themed, I'm going to buy all of them. Yeah. But like any kind of like fun hobby painting project, I'll just I'll just pick it up. It looks fun. Like I've got lots of weird stuff in my cupboard that I've never played with, but have enjoyed painting.
And do you, when you look at miniatures, potential models to buy, if they are suitable for 40K? Do you look at them differently? Do you try and evaluate like, well, what is it that I need?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think
even if
I'm looking at something
cat.
I could convert, it certainly is like who could that be? What could I run that as? But if I can't, I don't think that ever comes through my head, and I'll just paint it. Okay. I mean, I really enjoy doing conversions as well, right? So I love cutting up Citadel miniatures and then sticking them back together in weird and unusual ways. There's nothing more fun than that.
So do you still get miniatures you're like, that's going to be great in my army, but I don't like the look of it at all? Because you can cut something up and stick something on it. Or is this something where you're like, you know what? I don't like that. I don't care that it would be really great in my army. It doesn't look good enough for me.
So I certainly started out as the first one, but increasingly, so I started out with Necrons, and they're actually quite hard to kit bash because they're all spindly and they've got spines and bones and, they're robot skeletons. Like they're kind of tricky to kit bash. But the other 2 armies I play, Imperial Guard and World Eaters, are much more kit bashable because they're people. Imperial Guard, any army man model will do, any tank model will do. World Eaters, there's just so many options. So I actually really don't like the World Eaters Lord on Juggernaut model or the Lord Invocatus model. And as a result, I have 3 kit bashed Lord on Juggernauts that I can use for both of those. Like one on a jet bike, one on a regular motorbike, one on like a fantasy dinosaur. I didn't like the Lord Solar Leontus model when that came out, so I jammed him on a dinosaur. I've got 30 dinosaur Rough Riders. So yeah, if I don't like a model and I can come up with something else, I'll just add a dinosaur is always a great option. Add a dinosaur, add a cat, let's go.
That sounds perfect. The perfect solution to all of it. I think there's always a thing within Games Workshop-based wargaming, at least, where there is 3 distinct parts to the hobby. There is the playing of the game, which a lot of people enjoy. There is the painting of the miniatures that an awful lot of people enjoy, but is, I think, sometimes incredibly separate from the first one there. And then the third one, which is the collecting of the hobby, which you would think ties very, very closely with the painting part of it, but I have found the opposite. Have you found the opposite with the people that, at least within the community?
Yeah, so I think it varies for some people. Some people are into playing it, some people are into painting it, some people are into all three. I can think of one person in particular who has about 9 different regiments of Imperial Guard, all custom themed, and has collected an insane amount of points of Imperial Guard. But yeah, so I think different parts of it do appeal to different people. And if you like collecting things, anything Citadel's probably a pretty good place to start, because they're constantly bringing out new things for you to collect.
So as someone who has built a community for people to play, do you think that there should be another arm to Leithal Hits, which is a community for people to paint, and another one, I guess, to own boxes of
So I don't quite know. I don't know quite how we do a box collecting group.
Yeah, no, that one wouldn't work.
But yeah, we certainly are. So one of the team members, David, has started doing hobby hangouts on a Tuesday night where we just get on Discord and paint. And yeah, I think certainly that's something we would like to expand on more. We've got some folk who are interested in doing kit bash tutorials and just generally sharing hobby knowledge around. And there are some really terrifyingly good painters in Edinburgh. So if we can get them to do some tutorials, I think we would definitely be keen, because all of us who are mediocre average painters would very much like to level up.
You mentioned play quite a bit of video games. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm curious about the correlation between, or maybe as an entry point between folks getting excited about different types of video games or computer games and then getting into wargaming. So which do you think perfectly serve as like the biggest gateway into the hobby?
I think it's almost certainly video games, right? Like you can just
like specific ones.
So I would say recently Space Marine, but the other one that comes up all the time when new people are in is like I played Dawn of War as a kid. So those two are, I think, the really big ones in terms of getting folk interested in 40k specifically. If you were looking at like Warhammer Fantasy or AOS, I think Total Warhammer is probably the big gateway drug. You know, there's some other much cooler games out there than just a Total War game, but that seems to be the one everyone enjoys.
I think it's a really interesting thing when it comes to wargaming in particular, because it is not something that hides behind anything. I think when we're talking about board games and board game design and things like that, it's often an abstracted nature of what's happening. You know, you are buying and selling gems or whatever, but really it's for victory points. Like there's a whole bunch of things that are attached to it to theme it a certain way. I think war games kind of wears its face on its sleeve. That's a really weird sentence now I've thought about it. But it has everything that it is you have people fighting other people. Here are all your people. This is how you fight. You know, there is no extra things. And I think when it comes to the computer game side of stuff as well, I mean, the computer games are an awful lot of the time just a huge amount of dice rolls behind the scenes. Yeah. And what you're doing is putting that up front in front of people going, roll this many dice, and then you can see those odds and you can see what your likelihood is of it. There is kind of, I think, a lot of positives and negatives with that side of stuff. If this isn't too rude of a question, how many dice do you own?
Dougal, you don't have to answer that.
I honestly don't know how many dice I own. I have at least 50 in the dice bag I take to tournaments. I have a box under my desk with at least another 80, and then I have a D&D dice bag with probably another 50. So that's that's almost 200 dice.
And the dice are used to affect the game, but they're not really the game. The game is the miniatures and
the game is standing on circles and moving around a board.
Yes.
You're not actually even really that worried about killing things. You can win Warhammer without ever rolling an attack. It's quite hard to do, but it's fundamentally a game about standing on circles.
I mean, that sounds actually more like a sort of game that you would like to play, Gil, to be honest. Do you think there is room in the wargaming scene, because I've actually spoken to a few other designers about this, for a ostensibly wargaming game? I used air quotes there for all the people who can't see us.
I'll go shh.
Thanks. Okay, one, go. Is there room in the wargaming scene, which for a, I guess, miniatures game that has no combat side to it, that is not a fighting thing? Because I think that, like, well, it's I'm
That's the definition.
murdering your people. Is that inherent in the definition, or is it something
I think that certainly could be true. And actually, even if you look at war historically, a lot of it actually was not about killing. Most up until industrialization, most wars were won by scaring your opponent and breaking them. Most people did not in the English Civil War, people did not die in the push of pike. They died when they broke and they ran away. So I think there's a lot of space, if you're going for historical wargaming, around games that are more around morale and movement and objectives than, say, 40k, which is very much about killing and you roll a lot of dice to kill things. But yeah, I think there's a huge amount of design space in there for wargames that are not focused on just murdering lots of people.
There's a few that I know of, things like Turnip 28, where you play as usually 5-ish dudes in the mud running at other 5-ish dudes. And I think I saw a game where a couple of people almost hit each other, fell over in the mud, and that was the end of the game. And it's genuinely really fun and really great. Things like Forbidden Sam that fit on that kind of more narrative, and Hametsu, which again fits on that somewhere in between wargaming or skirmish gaming and tabletop RPGs that have that narrative focus as to what it's doing. The emergent gameplay is still there that the narrative comes from, but there is also much more of a kind of written side to it, or at least tabletop role-playing-y character side to it, but harder to do in a truly competitive manner. I think that is at least where things like 40k that you're playing does have this hugely competitive side. Is that something you find always positive? I feel like that's a leading question.
No, I think it's a super fair question, right? Like, competitive 40k sometimes has a really bad reputation, and a lot of that reputation, certainly historically, is deserved. There are people who will just buy an army off eBay, base count it, turn up at a tournament, stomp people, and go home and sell that army straight away again because they've been nerfed already, right? Like, there is certainly some stuff in competitive 40k that is not great and is not actually really that fun if you think about it. And I think we, as Leithal Hits, really try and shy away from super competitive stuff. Like, we have probably more strict hobby standards than most of the other tournaments, explicitly to try and stop that kind of behavior. Like, we don't really want lots of meta chasing. We want you to turn up with your army of your dudes that you've spent a couple of 100 hours on and you've really lovingly put together, and have fun with them. We don't want you to just buy an army off eBay and stomp people. And so I think certainly competitive 40k can come with some big downsides. It is also one of the more fun ways to play 40k. Like, Teams is probably the most, air quotes, competitive 40k format, because it's 2 teams of 5 or 8 players playing off against each other, and there's like a whole mini game around matchups and all that kind of fun stuff. But because you're playing for a team and you're trying to help your teammates out and score as much as you can to get a team result, actually it becomes quite an interesting way to play, because you're being super competitive and you're chasing every point and you're playing as hard as you can. But also, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, you could have the best game ever and you could stomp your opponent 20-0. And if everyone else loses, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So there's a bit of the pressure off on that as well.
What other things do you do then to corral this, or at least try and pull back on some of that heavy competitive nature? What are things that you could do as a small scale community organizer to kind of promote this fun of play over competitive nature? Or is this an impossible task that is always just something to kind of remind people of?
I think it's always a bit about setting culture and expectations, right? Like, we're really clear with people what our goal is, what our objective is. We're really clear with people how
it's circles. It's to stand on a circle.
And by setting the culture and making sure you reinforce it and making sure you have a lot of people who've bought into the culture, you can generally get it so that if someone from outside the group that comes in for a tournament, they can quite quickly get the sense of what's going on and the vibe of what's going on. So yeah, I think a lot of it is just about building a community with the right people, with the right intent. And that then gives you enough of a shield to bring other people in and indoctrinate them in that culture.
Do you find similarities in terms of the types of challenges that you might experience in terms of building that culture with, I'm thinking trading card game communities, or what you're saying in terms of trying to set expectations about what is good behavior or not? I can think of, stories that people share about the Magic community as similar types of challenges.
Yeah.
In terms of both expected behavior, what are you here to do? And yeah.
I think it's really fair that that's similar. I think with card games in particular, actually the game is often, not always, I have heard of marathon games of Magic. It's much shorter. Yeah. So if you run into a bad actor, it's not going to ruin your whole weekend, right? Whereas actually a game of 40k, you're going to be playing it for 3 hours in quite a close, confined space. You're going to be talking with this person a lot. If someone is a bad actor, it is probably going to ruin quite a substantial portion of your day. And so it's almost more important to set that culture right, because it is such a time commitment. Like, one bad game can ruin a whole weekend, so you do just want to make sure that things are right. And we tried to put stuff in place, so we're trying an app out this weekend that allows people to discreetly call a judge, so that you don't have to like actually build it into a confrontation. Because one of the things we've noticed at our events and other events is sometimes people go, actually, we were already getting a bit aggro, and I didn't want to raise that by calling over a judge and being super obvious about it. So actually, if they can just kind of get out their phone and subtly go, could I have a judge on table 4, please? Then you've got a bit more of an ability for players to self-regulate, hopefully.
Now, talking about financially devastating hobbies and Magic the Gathering, I do know that you also have got into Magic the Gathering as well.
I used to play Magic Gathering a lot as a kid. There was a club at school, so we would play in a science lab every lunchtime. And then I kind of fell out of it as a teenager, and I've, as an adult, got back into it occasionally, mostly through Magic Arena. But I do have some friends that play in-person Magic, so I do also play a little Magic.
So is it just I don't want to own money that is getting you into all of these different hobbies?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, got you.
Doing this at the same time as planning a wedding is obviously the most sensible financial decision you can ever make.
Hey, just you've got all your
Whose
guests.
weddings?
That's true. You've got all your guests. Tiny plastic
Exactly.
Imperial Guard can be your guests, and then you're saving money on shipping people in.
Wedding favors.
I have joked about it, but no, apparently not.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Do you find yourself playing any other sorts of physical games?
Yeah, so I would consider myself like I don't play a lot of board games, but I do like to play and buy board games. So a couple of the ones I've played recently are,
before we get into it, this is our weekly thing that we do every week. This is Jurassic Game and the Lost Worlds. What games have you been playing recently?
Sure.
Here we go.
There we go. That gave me enough time to actually remember what the games were.
Transition.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So Mlem's Space Empire is one that I picked up at Ancient Robot.
Space Agency.
Yes, which I really adore. Like, that is so much fun, and it's just deeply silly. The other one that we have not actually had time to play yet, but I'm really excited to play, is A Place for All My Books, which we haven't got around to yet.
Is that about a physical location or a fish? That's okay.
Sorry,
A Place for All My Books. Ow.
Oh,
Right.
jeez.
I think I've just taken psychic damage from that dad joke.
Yay!
I am victorious.
Yeah, but I probably don't get as much time to play other games as I would like to, just because organising all this 40k seems to take up a lot of time.
Yeah, that'll happen. I mean, definitely a throw to the side thematically for Mlem being you are Space Cats. You're rolling a bunch of dice, and then kind of picking the right dice for the right points at what you're doing within that game. Really, really good fun. Also comes with a big old neoprene map that is
it's a gorgeous map
in that game.
And all the tokens are really cute.
Yeah.
The planets are adorable. Like, this is great fun.
And A Place for All My Books, which is, again, really lovely. Comes with a bunch of tiny, tiny actual books, which is great, where you go out, you get a bunch of books, you take them home, you collect them, as in put them in your shelf in the right places that get you enough social battery to leave the house and get more books, which I think is possibly a slight character assassination against those of us who buy way too many books and don't end up reading them all. But you can read the books in the game, though. It is something that is possible. Gelb, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a bit of Courtesans recently, and once I have like there are these small games that don't take very long, and you can play when somebody comes over, and I've just been getting into that, and also just actually quite a few of the playtest games. So not stuff that's obviously out. Like Joss's game about billionaires and their private jets and trying to guess what their routes are. Like that's been
nice.
quite fun
They're
too.
trying to use up as much carbon as possible.
But there's this like battleship component where like one of you is an investigator.
Yep.
And the others are the billionaires.
Excellent.
So then there's a screen that goes up, and then they have to they have to move their planes, and then you have some like cards to say, force them to answer questions. But they also are able to lie sometimes. Excellent. So like, you're then trying to figure out which ones have been moved, and then you're guessing which billionaire is which. I just love it. I think it's great fun. But yeah, Courtesans also is just like, it's such a nice, tight, good game. And I've opened but not played yet the Back to the Future co-op, which looks awesome. I'm not quite sure what to expect. Like, I feel like it might just be like, what's going to happen, but it looks quite fun.
Are you saying that you know the plot line already of Back to the Future?
Marty!
What if there's some alt plot lines in there? They just throw you a little curveball and you don't know where you're going.
Enchantment Under the Sea, but with Space Marines. Is what they're saying. They come into it. I have recently picked up and have been playing Tag Team, which is a really clever little 2-player card game where you basically draft a couple of fighters, I guess, against your opponent, who also takes a couple. And you're ostensibly, what you're doing is you're programming a set of cards. You start with one card for each fighter and you place them in an order, and you will flip them over against the other person who is doing the same thing. And those fighters will then either attack each other, whatever it says on the card. Someone will attack or someone will block or something else like that. But every fighter is very unique. If anyone has played a game called Dice Throne, it has a similar feel to that, where everything is very, very character specific, and everyone has their own deck. So the other cards that are in the deck for those characters, you will shuffle together, and that creates the deck that you will draw from. So you will play those cards programming style out one after another until everyone's played the cards, and then you will draw 3 cards from the top of that deck of 2 characters things mashed together, and you will choose one of them to then add into your program. So add into your deck of cards that's already there, and you can place it on the top, on the bottom, or in between 2 cards, but you're not allowed to reorder the cards you already have. So you're aware of what other people are going to, or at least with the order that their cards are going to go off in, and you're trying to kind of counter pick what they're doing. It's a very, very clever game with a huge amount of characters, which makes it actually really, really interesting. Definitely playing a few times so that you know all the characters, so that it gives it a much more competitive edge. Learning what other people can do and the possibilities of stuff was really great. Also, it's very brightly colored. I think the art is good. It works, but it feels a little classic hero shootery Overwatch looking, which I think is great, but
it's been done.
It's been done. I would have liked something a little bit more creative, but gameplay wise, I think it's absolutely spectacular. I've had a great time with that, and I beat my brother playing it 4 times in a row, and that made me feel good. So that makes it a good
not
game.
Balance at all.
Not bad. Whereas I can't play miniatures games with him because he will beat me at everything. Malifaux, 40k, every single one that's possible, I will get devastated, which is a shame. Thank you so much for coming to join us today, Greg. If people did want to learn more about what Leithal Hits is doing or get involved in any way, what would be the best way to do so?
They can visit our website, which is lethalhits.co.uk, and it's spelt like Leith with an AL on the end, because it's Leithal Hits, and it's also Lethal Hits, which is a thing in Warhammer.
Anyone listening who is not in Edinburgh has no idea what we're talking about, but it is Leithal.
Yeah.
Hits. Fantastic on the website. Amazing. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for listening to the Ancient Robot Games podcast. As always, I have been Dougal.
And I am Gelb.
And this has been recorded and edited by Ryan Scott. If you liked this, or didn't...
Even if you didn't,
please let us know in the comments, or via email or Pigeon, if you've got Pigeon.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like us, drop us a line. And if you don't, do this really, really cool thing where you press follow or like. It actually works against us. So we'll still get the message.
Thank you very much for coming and listening with us, and we'll hear you next time.